Other interesting political news, you have the United Auto Workers increasing the strikes exponentially against GM and Stellantis, aka Chrysler, but not so much on Ford. Now this is coming as it's gone on for a couple days in regards to the actual strike. Now this is coming where the UAW contract, I believe it's every 4 years they have the contract with the big three being Ford, General Motors, and Chrysler. And back in the day, they were quite literally the big three. I mean, look back in history at the 40s and 50s. They were one of the largest automotive companies on the planet, and still a couple of them still are. There really wasn't much competition, and they actually made high-quality vehicles. And back then, they could pay the unions copious amount of monies because they're making lots of profit. Very little competition. But throughout the years, competition reared its head, and the free market said, oh yeah, we're going to choose these cars that cost less and are more reliable. And consumers frequently went over to companies like Toyota as well as Honda, which are also making cars in the United States more economically because the labor is more economical, as well as the quality being pretty far superior on most levels, and most surveys would agree, with a Toyota being damn near bulletproof. It lasts about a quarter of a century and 1,000,000 miles if you get the internal combustion engine Toyota. It's hard to beat that reliability. Now, it looks like, and I'm not too surprised that they're easing up on Ford in terms of, historically speaking, Ford has the greatest number of employees who are members of the United Auto Workers. They also pay a little bit more than the competition, and they've kept more factories in the United States throughout the years. So, on average, there's been more of a warmer relationship between the United Auto Workers as well as Ford. Now, this is the first time in about 80 years where you have all three UAW divisions or members striking at once in terms of the three. There's people striking at Chrysler or Stellantis. You have people striking at General Motors, and you have people striking at Ford simultaneously. Now, strategically speaking, Shawn Fain, the president of the UAW, he was elected, and the whole union wanted to strike. He did polls, and they asked people, like, do you want to go to strike? If we don't get the $80 billion they wanted from each of the big three manufacturers over the 4-year term of the contract, that number also estimated to be up to $100 billion in not just cash, but also benefits, as they fight for a 32-hour work week, but paid for 40. A 40% increase into their wages. They want pensions back. They want retiree benefits back. They want a cost of living adjustment in addition to a 40% increase on their salary. And the big three did the calculations. They realized, oh yeah, we got a business if we did that. And by the way, right now, before any contract negotiations, their cost of labor is already much more than the competition, including Tesla. And if you look at the 10K statements, you look at the financial statements of all these companies, as well as what their CEOs are saying from the big three, they want to compete with Tesla. They think they can beat Tesla at their own game of being an EV manufacturer. I think I'm kind of skeptical in terms of my outlook when it comes to that statement, but that's what they want to do, and it's going to cost a lot of money to actually go there. And UAW is pretty intimidated because you'll need less labor to make it an EV, and you're going to need more high-skilled labor in terms of you're going to need computer science degrees, so they're going to need different skill sets that aren't traditionally with the UAW. Now, that's what caused the big three and negotiations to fall apart, and at last minute, there was no agreement. So they started the strikes, and the UAW, cleverly, they decided to kneecap the companies by doing partial strikes. Now, that was clever because when they do a strike, they pay their employees, or they pay their union members, who pay a copious amount of dues to the UAW, in addition to, bribing. I mean, the UAW getting politicians elected with millions upon millions upon millions of dollars of political donations. They also have a strike fund of about $820 million. So when there's a strike, they pay the members about $500 per week, so that way they don't have to suffer as much as they're standing around or out there with the picket signs. And if they do a partial shutdown of the factories, so only maybe 5 employees from the factory, specifically with Ford, it was the Ford Bronco factory, they just took off the employees who are working on the final assembly and I believe the paint. Well, with those employees there, that won't work. In terms of the factory, they can't make the vehicle, which will be detrimental for all 18 people who still want to buy a Ford. I kid, I know, there's like 23 people. Kind of kidding. But nevertheless, the factory can't function. Apparently they didn't cross-train their employees properly, maybe. That's my speculation. So, when the UAW decided to do the partial shutdowns at those strategic factories, the big three, Ford, GM, and Chrysler said, all right, well, the factories aren't making money. They're actually costing us money right now. We can't finish the product. What's the point of making the vehicle there? So they laid off employees and shut down those associated factories. And I say shut down, I mean, it's not a permanent shutdown. They're just temporarily closing the doors, it seems. Now, specifically, it looks like this is from an article from CNN. This is from a statement from the president of the UAW, Shawn Fain. And it's one of those things where I do appreciate all the comments, and your experiences are highly fascinating. I always say more data, the better. Interesting thing about Shawn Fain, big fan of censorship. All his videos, the comments are locked down. And the only ones in which my videos are locked down is when YouTube overrides me, and this censorious company, or censorship-loving company, YouTube, they actually lock it. So in my comment section, my default is allow all comments, even ones that are vulgar and pejorative. And there are usually a couple of those you can probably spot them quite well. Any positive, constructive feedback is appreciated, however. Now, UAW President Shawn Fain made an announcement last Friday morning saying, quote, at noon Eastern today, all parts distribution centers at General Motors and Stellantis will be on strike. He continued to say, quote, we will shut down parts distribution until those two companies come to their senses and come to the table with a serious offer. Wow. And by serious offer, he means one that will presumably cripple the companies financially. Because again, the only thing they've conceded, again, they want a 32-hour work week, but paid 40 hours. So they conceded, instead of a 40% increase in their wages, they think they're being reasonable. They offer 36. That's the only concession I've seen. And if you see more, let me know in the comments. I've looked around at different websites. So far, that's the only concession to be seen from the UAW. So they want billions upon billions upon billions of benefits. At the same time, these companies are trying to pivot into new technologies and new products to go against the big behemoth that is Tesla. And don't forget, China's EV production is increasing exponentially. That company, as soon as those imports come, it's going to be a hard time to compete with them. Now, Shane did say that they had some improvements from offers from Ford, and that is why they are not having an additional strike at Ford. Now, it looks like the strike will expand. Wow, that's quite a bit. A lot of employees are going to be on vacation. So it says, quote, we want to recognize that Ford is serious about reaching a deal, unquote, from Shawn Fain. They continue to say, the strike will now expand to GM and Stellantis' 38 parts and distribution centers spread across 20 states. The distribution centers generally send parts to the dealerships to be used for repairs, so the move could be to cripple the dealership's ability to repairs, which is the most profitable part of their business, unquote. Oh, interesting. I thought it would be more strategic in the fact that it would be parts for the new vehicles. Now, interestingly enough, this also is another Achilles heel that's hurting the big three, is the dealerships. Tesla, not only do they have cheaper labor, more reliable product, well, short-term, long-term EVs are basically disposable with the current technologies we have, but they also have the dealerships that add a lot of cost, and for many people, they don't appreciate the dealership experience. It's pejorative and usually negative to say the least for most people. So increased costs increases the friction which for the customer buying experience, which they do not find palatable. And Tesla just transacts a new sale like that. And again, at the time, that was a revolutionary thing for the automotive community. Now you see most startups, especially EVs, they have that similar business model. Now, the downside is you're locked in like a smartphone. Your friend Bob, the independent mechanic, he's not going to be able to repair the supercomputer on wheels, not because he's not technologically proficient or he can't learn the new technology. It's because the technology is locked in, like a smartphone. So my 2 cents, I appreciate having the ability to repair my own things with third-party capabilities. So this will be interesting. Now, GM commented saying that the strike was "quote unquote" unnecessary, but it will continue to bargain in good faith. They continue to say, quote, today's strike escalation by the UAW's top leadership is unnecessary. We have contingency plans for various scenarios, and we are prepared to do what is best for our business, our customers, and our dealers. We will continue to bargain in good faith with the union to reach an agreement as quickly as possible, unquote. Now, when it comes to Ford comments, Ford said, quote, Ford is working diligently with the UAW to reach a deal that rewards our workforce and enables Ford to invest in a vibrant and growing future, unquote. No. That's quite literally the opposite. The antithesis of the statement is true. There's less resources to invest into your bleeding company. And when I say bleeding company, Ford is bleeding precipitously from their Ford their EV segment, with their product being the Mustang Mach-E. which has nothing to do with the Mustang except name only, that division is losing money hand over fist. They thought they would break even with that soon, but not so much. Ford Blue, the original Ford, that's the one you and I love, that one that actually has internal combustion engines like the V8, and 3 pedals, also known as the manual transmission with the real Mustang. That's called Ford Blue. That's what's making all the profits for the company. So you have Ford Commercial, Ford Blue, and Ford EV. And EV is where they're making a majority of their new investments. And right now, they have a lot less investment money, depending on how much they give these companies, and rather how much they give the UAW. And again, this is a 4-year contract, and the price never goes down. It's one of those things where the only time it's ever gone down is when the UAW was a contributing factor to the companies going bankrupt, specifically at Ford as well as Stellantis. And they did give up some things in terms of, they were in the 2008 recession, 2009 bankruptcy for those two companies. They did give up some incentives that they had with Ford, partially because they had to, because the company was on precipice of going bankrupt. They got lucky with a big loan that was very conveniently timed for them to stay in business. Now, it'll be interesting to see what the dealers do. Throughout the process, because there's already been friction between the dealerships as well as the actual parent companies, or it's actually independent business, the big 3. Because customers are not happy that they're putting a market adjustment on vehicles of $10,000, $20,000 plus over list price. And it used to be, back in the day, as some might say, MSRP was for chumps. No one actually paid the MSRP, which is the manufacturer suggested retail price. It was always known that you would pay below that. Paying MSRP used to be audaciously unusual. It was only reserved for very niche products or like a very specific limited edition of a vehicle. Most people never paid MSRP. Now people are paying market adjustments of 5, 10, 20, 50 grand plus. And again, those are the dealerships doing that. Consumers are not happy, but legally speaking, there's only so much the companies can do in terms of the Fords of the world, the GMs and Chryslers. So it'll be interesting to see what concessions are really given up on both sides. Can they get in the middle? And then now what are the dealers going to start doing? Although thankfully I have a Honda, so, not only will it statistically be less likely to break, but if I need parts, I can just get parts. Let me know in the comments, do you think, it sounds like Ford is getting close to an agreement. How much longer do you think the strike will go on between the UAW as well as General Motors and Stellantis? Which again, Stellantis is the new parent company because they went bankrupt so bad, European conglomerate had to buy them out. They own what it was Chrysler, which also owns Jeep as well as Dodge. So let me know, do you think it'll go on for a couple of weeks, months, half a year? It's a good time to strike. Actually, it's a good time for the big 3 in terms of the timing of the strike. Not a lot of demand for cars these days. Record high interest rates. A lot of people are trying to make their dollar stretch longer or farther. And again, the average price of a new car in the United States is about $50,000. Tesla's gotten their price point where their Tesla is now cheaper than an average price of a new car in the United States. Now, don't get me wrong, Tesla's basically disposable because it's an EV, so after a certain amount of years, batteries kaput, batteries worth more than the car. Well, not the best ROI. If you want an ROI, buy a Toyota with an internal combustion engine. Lasts damn near 1 million miles in a quarter of a century. Pretty good ROI in terms of reliability. But let me know in the comments. I greatly appreciate your experiences. If you're from the UAW, what's 1 or 2 things you have to have or a non-negotiable that you really want to get back? Is it the cost of living expenses? Is it the 36% wage increase over the 4-year term of the contract? What are a couple of things that you really will not give up? And what are some things that you're kind of confused? Why is Sean, the president, pushing for this specific benefit? Is that something you may not value as much? And if you work at one of the big 3, it'd be fascinating to hear your perspective. Do you think they're asking for too much? I'd love to hear, again, maybe an anonymous accountant at the big 3 give us a cost breakdown of what these certain initiatives would cost. I'm fascinated to hear your experiences, and I appreciate all the commentary. Thank you, everyone, again, for taking the time to tune in today. Again, I know it's ambitious, but we're trying to get to 4,000 subscribers by the end of September. So if you could click that button, I'd greatly appreciate it. Also, friendly reminder, we're giving away a free flamethrower with every September purchase at toppingtechnologies.com. See the website for additional details. Also, don't forget to take the time to like and comment. The feedback is greatly appreciated, especially if it's constructive. And again, I'm trying to find a better software to do picture-in-picture for production quality. If you can do that, suggestions are greatly appreciated. Also, don't forget to take the time to tell your family, tell your friends, tell your coworkers, heck, tell your enemies, tell anyone and everyone. Just stay safe, fight the good fight.